even after the farmer and his friends turned out to be some sort of maniac militia to take down the alien base along with their National Guard counterparts. They had some time to rest, but the battle continued around the planet. In the sky, the battle was absolutely horrific. Many of the militaries around the world used whatever ordnance they could, although the older ordnance was, for the most part, ineffective. It couldn't maneuver nearly as much, yet it confused the living crap out of everyone. Incidentally, the Phoenix missile, because it would go up so high, they thought it was aiming for another target before it would come down on them. But if you fire from multiple directions, their own sensors couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. Why was it suddenly turning? The ordnance itself would hit pretty hard, if it would hit at all. That was the main issue. It was definitely not as effective as the more up-to-date munitions, in particular, hypersonics. Any ship that was on the ground linking up with another to form some sort of base would fall prey to the hypersonics without any issue. Even though they could tell when the hypersonic was going to get there, the disruptor field wasn't good enough. Because they could disrupt everything more than 3 or 4 seconds away, it would cause the guided munitions, standard munitions, to simply spin out of control, and more or less, even if they got a hit, it would be simply grazing. Since the hypersonics were coming in so fast, they would hit their target about 0.8 seconds before impact. Not enough time to dissuade it to move it into a different location. In other words, no matter what they did, it was a direct hit. And these direct hits a lot of time cause secondary explosions. Those in the air tried to get away from it by using their own maneuvering abilities to seemingly move from one way to another as though atmosphere wasn't really a thing. The problem is they couldn't dodge everything, and if they tried specifically to dodge the hypersonics, they had to rush off into a different direction, leaving their own friends out there by themselves, which meant fewer targets, which meant more ordnance heading towards them, which means cause and effect is a real bitch. On the ground, once they got there, they found out really quick that the energy weapons were fairly ineffective. Though it would cause burns, and if it hit certain parts of the human body would simply explode, in particular things like the lung, the heart, and the brain, the range on them was extremely limited. From what the humans could tell, and they were confirmed on this, the range was only about 70 meters at best. If they got within 50, then yes, it was fully effective if it struck the body. If it struck the body. However, they found out really quick that humanity really knew how to dive for cover. Most of the energy weapons would strike in on some sort of foliage, usually a big tree, or maybe a big rock, it didn't matter, and then simply burst ineffectively. Then they had to deal with an angry human who was now knowing exactly where you were and was already locked and loaded. Each species believed that their energy shields would actually protect them, but not from anything unguided. And they found out really quick that bullets don't need guidance. There are none being used at this point that would be able to guide themselves. And they found themselves really quick falling one right after another. The lizards were having a whole lot more difficulty because they would regenerate fairly quickly and try to get up and run only to catch more bullets in their back. So they decided, well, we need to get closer, and they would charge, not realizing that humanity said, you want hand-to-hand or hand-to-claw? Okay, let's do this. Around the world, different techniques were used. Some were simply thrown by these humans. Others were struck. Others seemed to realize that humans had wrapped themselves in some sort of protective equipment, but this was actually to protect the human. They felt the impact from the hands and the feet much stronger. Sometimes they would simply raise their hands up with their palms down in the closed fist, in a weird, strange stance, and then suddenly strike with the elbows and the knees so hard that you would hear all sorts of bones crack. The Xenos decided if they were on the ground and couldn't leave, they had to hide. They would change the way they look, as all of them could, and they would try to hide inside the humans, trying to find a way to stop them. This was a common technique they'd been using on Earth for a long time. However, they found out really fast that humans started to rely on canines a lot. A bit too much, really, as canines would very quickly sniff the air, start growling and barking, and want to attack them. Sometimes the humans would simply say, calm down, trying to get the canine to just relax a little bit and allow this Xeno around. But others would say, hey, my dog doesn't like you. What are you? I'm human. Yeah, right. Over here. And they would immediately bind the Xeno up. It didn't matter what species. They had to find out what they were and realize really quick that the majority of those hiding were not the whites. The whites decided that they wanted to be friends with humanity now that the farmer, the pilot, and everybody else had started to be nice to them. They tried to coordinate their attacks, but for the most part, the tall whites were losing, and they needed help. They tried to defend themselves and hoped that humanity could at least hold them off, but humanity turned out to be much more resilient. They began to coordinate their attacks all around the planet and began to keep fighting off any type of Xenos they found, and it was an absolute melee mess that was there. It seems as though humans lived up to the reputation. They just kill and kill and kill. You piss them off, and they will just keep coming. They're machines. They're monsters. Eventually, forces withdraw as far as they can, and leaving the territory around the farmer and his land completely free of Xeno intervention. This left him with a very interesting conundrum. He had a tall couple in his house, and he wasn't sure what's going to happen. He decided to talk to him for a little bit, and then he decided to use social media. Thankfully, other people were doing the same thing, showing that the tall whites were trying to make a deal, trying to make a treaty, and that is where the deal was struck. Humanity as a whole wanted themselves to be free. They wanted to be able to know what has been killing them, what their past truly was, and if the tall whites were willing to do this, they would stop killing them. The tall whites, believing this is the only way off, agreed to this without hesitation. It would be at least a week before they got a ride and invited inside one of the larger ships. These ships were brought in pieces and put together. As the farmer walked in with his brother, the farmer looked over and was told, yes, just lay inside this capsule and we will fix you. However, you must remove all articles of clothing. A little hesitant, the farmer did what he was asked, removed his clothing and got in. But as the pod began to close with some sort of weird overlay that seemed to almost melt across, but seemed as though it was growing like a fungus all the way around, but it was just the dome. It didn't actually touch him. It was very odd to see, something out of strange old sci-fi. That's when the brother realized something. He pulled his pistol and didn't aim it at anybody, but he cocked it back. He said, if he dies, so do you. And that's when he raised the pistol towards his tall white friend. The tall white friend realized and simply gave a human nod and just said, okay, just don't kill me unless you absolutely have to. Okay, now you tell me what you're doing to my brother before you actually do it. And we got no problems here. With that, the procedure began. He was told how to fix the humans, and that was easy. He was told how the telomeres, how they wear down over time. This was injected into the human genome a long time ago. By who, they're not exactly sure. It seems natural and unnatural at the same time. They didn't know why. But with the telomeres fully extended and making sure that they don't wear out as they will fully regenerate, humanity can now not age, not the way they used to. There are certain things to keep in mind, but they can worry about that later. After the telomeres were done, which didn't take long at all, then certain devices locked on to the arms, legs, torso, neck, even the head of the one inside the pod. His brother got real nervous at that point, and everybody could tell his anxiety was raising. The one fixing him said, "Do not be afraid. We are simply removing the toxins out." Toxins? What are you talking about, toxins? We live really clean. With that, every white in the room started to chuckle. "Okay, you want to tell me what's wrong?" They simply stated, "There's too much of your world that is toxic to you. Most of this has been done by your own kind over time. They have no problem toxifying you as long as they stay clean, of course. But as you will see, there is much inside the body." With this, the brother watched close as he saw this strange reservoir on the side fill up with a gross type of sludge that was a mix of vomit, diarrhea, and green ooze. As soon as it was about halfway full, the devices removed themselves from his body. With that, a light was slowly cast over, and the brother asked, "What you doing now?" "This is dermal regeneration, something that should be available to you with your own level of technology." "Yeah, we got a lot of assholes that don't want us to have that sort of tech." "Why is that, anyway?" "Oh, straight up greed and the want for power, that sort of bullshit." The tall one simply looked puzzled and said, "I understand most of this. However, I do not understand what bovine excrement has anything to do with it." With that, the brother simply laughed and said, don't worry about it. That's just a human idiom. Don't worry about it." About that time, the cover on the pod seemed to almost melt away, opening up, allowing the farmer to open his eyes. He realized at that very moment something was off, yet off in a good way. He realized that everything was right about him. He could see much better. He could hear much better again. His nerve endings seemed to work the way they were supposed to. He was thinking so much faster. As soon as he got up from the pod and reached for his pants, he immediately said, "Hey, on the rest of what we were talking about, you want to show me the real history now?" "Oh, certainly, this way." With that, he was led away over to a learning apparatus where all he had to do was set his head inside of it, and the knowledge would be implanted. The process of implanting the knowledge took a bit longer than fixing the body, but not by much. As soon as he removed himself from the device as it unwrapped itself from his head, he just simply stood up and seemed to have a thousand-yard stare as he says, "That can't be right. Holy shit." He says this as his brother walks in and says, What's wrong?" "Oh, you stick your head in here. Trust me, I can't explain it right now. It's faster. You just put your head in here like they say." With that, he immediately did. And as he did, the farmer simply looked and goes, "Hank, you definitely lived up to your part of the bargain." He got on social media with a video of himself getting fixed, and of course others were doing the same thing. And very quickly, all the whites started fixing everyone else. Yet the fixing of the body, even though it would upend a lot of the financials around the world, it would reset everything in a right way. There is a right way to reset things and a wrong way. And they found out really quick that those that had integrated Xeno blood into their own bloodline had destroyed the world before, several times, and they will do it again, realizing that now that everybody knows what's going on, those that believe themselves to be the elite of the elite will gladly destroy everyone to get what they want. And what they want is absolute power and control over everything, to include history, the knowledge that everyone has. The tall brother and sister were sitting there talking to the farmer and asked if he would actually raise his weapons again. The farmer simply said, "Nah, right now weapons are silent. We've had our taste of blood for a while. We still need to bury our dead, lick our wounds and everything. But we ain't ever going to get rid of them." "Why is that?" she asked. "Oh, you always got to be ready for danger." I mean, especially from us own humans. I mean, you've seen how it is. You know our history. You know that they're half a step from just flooding us out once again. I mean, Lord knows what they're going to pull now. I mean, you guys have a lot of our history, but you got to remember that there's a lot that's still hidden from even you. I doubt we'll ever know the whole truth, and nothing but. It was around that time that the tall visitor said that he still owes a debt of a life, as his life was saved and so was his sister's. So he started to ask about would he actually reconsider being bonded, married to his sister. She even asked if the farmer would reconsider remaining on this planet and go with her into her world. The farmer looked at her and, with absolute care in his eyes, simply said, I'd love to go with you. Hell, I'd love to climb you like a tree. But this is my home. I'm willing to fight for it. If you're willing to stay here with me, I will not only fight for it, but I will protect you. But this is where I'm going to be. This is my family farm. I can't just up and leave it. With that, the tall guy recommended, so there is a possibility that we could make peace through marriage. I believe that's what you call it. Marriage. I never thought about that one. I mean, it's not as though I would look at her that way. We don't, not here. We don't look at our women as property. Your folks may do that, but we don't. I simply need her answer. And tell you what, hold on a sec. He then gets up, walks over to her, stands in front of her as she's sitting down, which meant that she is only slightly smaller than he is at that point. He picks up her hands, said, without looking at him, answer this question. Would you actually want to be a farmer's wife? She looked confused and said, Farmer? I've seen the way you fight. You're a warrior. Well, I'm a warrior outstanding in my field, so to speak. So, are you willing to make peace this way? She simply smiles and doesn't have to say anything. And now, around the world, this same sort of scenario is playing out. Whether it be Xeno male, Xeno female, it doesn't matter. They're now integrating with humanity, and for once, in the first time in probably ever of human history, humanity is not alone. It doesn't stand alone in the universe. This tiny little dot in the ocean of space, it may not be officially part of anyone's territory. It might just be midway between all the different species out there, but just like humanity has done throughout history, they stand alone together. Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me on the ending of this series. Before I go, I need to send out a big thank you to one of my supporters, and that is Sir Delta Tango 2 Whiskey Echo. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.